Most people will never know this, but right now, a wealth transfer larger than the Great Depression, larger than 2008, larger than every market crash in modern history is unfolding in plain sight. Not by chaos, not by mistake, but with structure, precision, and intention. The richest 1% aren't just getting richer. They're absorbing the entire economic foundation beneath everyone else. And almost no one understands how it's being done. Let me show you what they don't want you to see. The average person is distracted, overwhelmed, and exhausted. Rising prices and stagnant wage. Rent that grows faster than their paychecks. They see the symptoms of decline, but never the mechanism behind it. They feel inflation but don't realize it's engineered. They feel debt, but don't know who profits from it. They watch their savings lose value while the same crisis that breaks the middle class magically becomes the opportunity that multiplies elite wealth. And they don't question it, because it is disguised as normal economics. Slow, boring, technical, hidden in plain sight. To understand the silent transfer, you have to go back to where it started. In 1913, the Federal Reserve was created. It was sold as a stabilizer, but built as a controller. For the first time, a private central banking system gained the legal power to print the nation's money. From that moment forward, money could be created without limits, without production, without labor. And those closest to the money printer banks, corporations, political elites, would always receive the benefits first. Everyone else receives the consequences last. This was the first lever of silent extraction. Then came 1944. Bretton Woods. Global currencies were reorganized, and the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. This guaranteed global demand for the dollar, which meant the United States could expand its money supply without facing collapse. Inflation became a hidden tax, a tax most people never saw, never voted for, and never understood. In 1971, the system changed again. Nixon removed the dollar from gold. Money became an idea, backed by nothing but debt. From that day forward, every dollar you touched was no longer tied to something real. It was tied to a promise. And promises can be printed infinitely. Money became debt. Debt became money. And those who controlled the issuance of debt controlled the flow of wealth. In the 1980s and 1990s, deregulation unleashed a new era. High-risk financial engineering, derivatives, leveraged buyouts, a credit system that could expand into infinity. Money became digital. Debt became the engine of corporate power. Every crisis, every shock, every collapse increased elite consolidation. The middle class was no longer a pillar, it became a resource. Then came 2008. The great template. Millions lost homes, jobs, and savings. But the biggest institutions were saved. They were rewarded. They received liquidity, bailouts, life. The public paid the price. Wall Street wrote the rules, and a new message was etched into the structure. When the elites fail, the public covers the bill. When the public fails, no one covers theirs. A perfect transfer mechanism, but the real acceleration came in 2020. A global lockdown, markets frozen, panic everywhere, and then $6 trillion appeared out of thin air. 0% interest rates, unlimited asset purchases. The wealth of the richest exploded. Meanwhile, small businesses died forever. Families sank into debt. Savings evaporated. The gap widened. This was not an accident. It was a transfer. Quiet, mathematical, unstoppable. After the money flood came the squeeze. In 2022, 2023, and 2024, inflation hit hardest for the bottom 80%. Prices rose, groceries doubled. Rent surged, and then interest rates spiked. The same system that flooded the world with cheap money now drained it. Middle-class families paid for inflation through higher prices, then paid again as their debts became more expensive. Meanwhile, institutional investors waited patiently with mountains of cash, watching the forced sellers panic. Then they bought everything back cheaper. This cycle of inflate, squeeze, absorb repeats again and again. quiet extraction disguised as economic adjustment. Now we arrive in 2025 and 2026, and the next phase becomes visible. Global debt is projected to cross $350 trillion. U.S. interest payments alone have crossed $1 trillion per year, more than the country spends on defense, education, or Medicare. When a nation pays more interest than it spends on its people, the outcome is predictable: more printing, more inflation, more silent taxation. Most people won't see it, but every dollar printed steals value from the dollars you already hold. Corporate debt is the next pressure point. Nearly $5 trillion must be refinanced between 2025 and 2026. Small and mid-sized companies cannot survive these higher rates. They will be forced to sell themselves. Two giants: BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard. The slow takeover of the real economy accelerates. This is still happening today. Housing follows the same pattern. Projections show that by 2026, institutional investors could own 1/4 of all single-family rentals in major American cities. Every home they buy is one less home a family can buy. Every purchase converts ownership into permanent rent. A lifetime of payments flowing upward. A slow, quiet shift from a nation of owners to a nation of renters. Here's what they don't want you to understand. The wealth transfer is not a future event. It is not a prediction. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is a machine already running at full speed. And it works through 3 channels. The first is inflation theft. Your money loses value every year. Their assets gain value every year. You work more for less. They own more for doing nothing. The second is debt enslavement. You take debt to survive. Food, housing, education. They take debt to accumulate assets. Your debt makes you poor. Their debt makes them richer. The third is crisis harvesting. Every crisis wipes out small players and hands their market share to the largest ones. 2008, 2020, 2023. Each emergency concentrates power at the top. So who wins? Central banks, megacorporations, asset managers, the political class. Anyone with access to cheap capital. And who loses? Workers, renters, savers, small businesses. Anyone who lives on a fixed income. The middle class. It's not being squeezed by accident. It is being harvested quietly, predictably, mathematically. And the end game is simple. A world where ownership becomes the privilege of a few, and everyone else pays to exist. Most people won't notice until it's too late, but those who see the pattern can still prepare. Acquire productive assets. Reduce bad debt. Increase skills. Build leverage. Learn the system instead of being trapped inside it. The next phase is forming programmable money, centralized digital currencies, algorithmic control over spending. Once that system locks into place, there's no going back. If this video woke you up, drop a like and subscribe. New, forbidden truth, every single day. Turn on notifications. The next one might save your wealth. Comment on the one thing you're doing right now to prepare. I read every single one.